Hi everybody, my name's Jeff Tigert. I work for American Honda in the Motorcycle Product Planning Division. We're out here today to launch the 2014 CRF450R. Let's go check it out. Okay, some of the major changes on the 2014 CRF450R over the 13-year model is the engine gets some revisions. It gets a brand new cylinder head with a new intake and exhaust shape. It's got a little different port shape than last year's model. It also gets a new exhaust system which has a different separator in the Y pipe just to improve the flow efficiency of the exhaust system. But the biggest change for the motor is it gets a new dual stage timing fuel injection. And what that is, it's a single fuel injector that cycles twice instead of the normal one cycle that we had last year. And what that does is it allows the first charge of fuel to cool the intake track and also the face of the valve. So when the second charge of fuel is released, it just gives it a little better efficiency and it gives it a little better atomization as it goes into the engine. Not giving it a big horsepower increase, but what it does, it gives it a little better throttle response and a little better low-end torque feel coming off the bottom, and allows it to rev a little faster than last year's model. So now going into the changes on the chassis, we get an updated front fork. It gets a new rebound piston and a new rebound rod, and it also gets a modification of the air pressure. Last year our standard pressure was 33 psi. This year we're going up to 35 psi. Again, it's one of those things that we listen to the customers. Some of the guys will run a little more pressure in it, and it's fully adjustable. So it's not like it's taken away from anybody. If you like running 32 or 33, you'll be just as happy setting it up. It's one of the nice things about our air forks that it gives the customer a lot of adjustability on giving the front fork its right feel for each customer's own abilities. Let's see, and that's really all the changes on this model. It doesn't get a ton of modifications. We tried to address some of the areas where we heard some feedback from our customers and some of the people that are racing these bikes from last year's model. So for more information on this new model, please visit the TransWorld website. And thanks very much, everybody. Have a good day.
Hey everybody, this is TransWorld Motocross. I'm Pat Foster. This is the 2014 CRF450, and we're at Cheney Ranch today. Honda came out with an all-new bike in 2013, literally from the ground up, changed a lot of issues that they had with the frame geometry. They've been struggling with some handling issues for the last few years. The all-new bike last year was a huge improvement over the last couple of years. For 2014, there's not a lot of changes. They've just addressed a few issues that we had last year. Number one, they played with the air fork a little bit. Last year, the air fork was smooth and progressive at first, but it just wasn't substantial enough. The fork would blow through really easily. If you added more air, it just made the initial ride a little harsher, and it still blew through. It definitely needed some valving changes, which Honda addressed this year. They made it a little bit more substantial at the initial stroke, so the bike just feels like it rides up in the stroke a little bit higher, which ultimately gives it a smoother ride, a little bit more predictable, especially entering corners. The front end's a little bit more stable, but the middle of the stroke is where it gets progressively stronger, and it just doesn't blow through the stroke nearly as much. So overall, it's a much smoother ride. I think they moved the stock air pressure up a couple of pounds, and so they adjusted the valving accordingly to work with the increased air pressure. I would describe the action as the fork holding its integrity a lot better. It's a lot more consistent. Coming into the corners, you're hitting the braking bumps. It doesn't want to blow through the stroke as much. It feels smooth, and ultimately it's much more predictable than last year. Which kind of leads me to some of the handling characteristics that were a problem with the old Honda. The old Honda was very inconsistent entering corners. It had a tendency to want to push, and then it would stand up, and there was just all kinds of geometry issues. The new frame that they added in 2013 improved that a lot. So much more confidence inspiring coming into corners on the Honda now. The bike wants to steer with the front end. It still feels like it has a little bit of a front end bias, which I like. I like to steer with the front wheel, and so it's just much more confidence inspiring coming into corners and diving in with the front end and knowing that it's going to stick, it's not going to wash or wallow. Power-wise, the Honda has a really interesting delivery, especially for a 450. Most of the 450s have a ton of bottom end and hit really hard and pull into a really strong mid-range, where the Honda's kind of the opposite. It comes on really smooth, almost, I don't want to say lazy, but just very measured delivery. The power delivery on the Honda, both this year and last year, I would describe as pretty measured, moderate. It comes on very smooth, never any hit on the bottom, no hit in the mid-range. It never feels like it wants to pull your arms out of the socket, which is pretty unusual for a 450. Usually they can be pretty overwhelming. The Honda's not that way. And I think a lot of people will like the power delivery. It's very smooth and measured, but it's effective. It puts good power to the ground. It's just efficient power. There are some times out here on this track in some of the soft berms where I wish it had a little more low end to pull you out. But conversely, on some of the slick inside lines, man, it just puts really effective power to the ground. Like I said, very efficient delivery, and something that encourages you to push hard. It's never overwhelming. It doesn't get your attention. It kind of forces you to push hard, which I like. I definitely think that it could use a tooth on the back for me. I would like to have a little bit more bottom end, so I think just one tooth on the back would make it pretty effective. They did make some changes this year to the port shape, which gives it a little bit more throttle response, really quick throttle. Last year was a little bit lazy right off the bottom, and that woke it up a little bit, but I don't think it made any difference in the power delivery. Overall, we've had a great time here at Cheney Ranch riding the new 450 Honda. Shootout time's right around the corner. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing stacks up against the other bikes. Please check it out. Thank you, guys.